All right, for the final time this week, we get to take a look at the papers, take a look at the headlines making the rounds, and of course, have us talking. You know what it is. This is Freshly Pressed on the Smooth Breakfast on Smooth 98.1, your love music, love live station on a feel good Friday. Yes, as you know, weekend is upon us already, so I know that you are probably in that mood in some way. But for now, let's get down to some serious business and take a look at what's going on in Nigeria. Welcome to the show. My name is Ayokunmi. It's going to be news stories, analysis will follow, and of course, your thoughts, your reactions are looked forward to. We love it when you join in the conversation and share your thoughts with us. And you can do that, as always, it hasn't changed. WhatsApp is one way to share your thoughts with us 0809 444 0981. 0809 444 981 is the WhatsApp number. We're also on YouTube. You can send your messages in there at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Please, try to keep the messages as short as possible. I know you have a lot to say concerning the issues coming out of Nigeria. It's understandable, but bear with us. Shorter messages, more concise messages make it a whole lot easier to read and get through everything so that I don't, leave some out and take some, something like that. So you get what I'm trying to say. All right. My analysts are in for the morning on a Friday. You know how we get things done. It is, of course, Joseph Obari and AB Bozimo. Good morning to you, gentlemen.
Morning,
Morning,
Ayo. Morning, AB.
morning. Hey,
And
morning, Ayo. Morning, Joseph. Great to see you both. Good morning to all of our
yeah,
wonderful listeners out there.
all listeners are welcome to the show.
Indeed. Always a pleasure having the both of you on a Friday because, hey, I'm looking forward to the fireworks. And then fireworks are definitely afoot. And AB, let's get things started by jumping into the punch this morning. Now, it's a report coming out of that particular paper. Now, it says a total of 29 state governors spent 1.994 trillion naira on recurrent expenditure including refreshments, sitting allowances, traveling, and utilities in the first 9 months of 2024. That's according to findings by the Punch. Now, it also was also gathered that the states obtained a 533.29 billion naira loan, while it spent 658.93 billion naira to service its debts owed to local, foreign, and multilateral creditors. However, these states fell short in their revenue generating targets, collecting a total sum of 1.92 trillion naira as internally generated revenue, but fell short of the revenue target of 2.868 trillion naira, recording a deficit of 948.28 billion naira. Now, this recurrent data utilized in the report did not include personnel costs. Now, looking at these numbers, first 9 months, and you've had conversations about things from a federal level in terms of reducing the cost of governance, this and that, and so on and so forth. But the states seem to fall under the cracks when we have those conversations. But now this report has kind of more or less spotlit the states. Now, let me get your thoughts in on this one, AB.
Actually, the states have never fallen under the cracks for me. I've persistently said we must take a closer look at what the various state governments are doing, and especially now, what our various local governments will be doing with the latest iteration of the law. Just think about this. Part of this story tells us that all states have got a 40% increase in revenues allocated to them. The story also tells us, interestingly, that the states that are not included in these numbers are Borno, Gombe, Kaduna, Kano, Kwara, Sokoto, and Ogun states. Some of these states, you might remember, are embroiled in the current issues about the new tax revenue and all that, and they're having objections for one way or the other. But I think this tells us where a lot of the rot and the mismanagement and misprioritization of spending is going on. These monies, excluding personnel costs, were for refreshments, sitting allowances, travel, and utilities for
Mm.
just the first 9 months. These are states too that took loans of almost half a trillion and spent nearly 700 billion, which is more than the loans that they took to service existing and new loans. They failed to reach their revenue targets. So they know how to sit and to travel and to have refreshments, but they don't know how to galvanize their various state residents and occupants to help improve revenue. I'm not saying take a whip and whip the people like scorpions, but to create the enabling environment with the money used on tea and coffee. Remember when Joseph said the thing about the only thing that's interesting in committees is the tea at the end. So all these sitting allowances seem to be about what they can do with themselves, not just the governors, but typically all those in government, going around the place, traveling up and down. But at the end of the day, they are actually financially upside down. Fundamentally, the state governors and governments are in economic distress. We don't have the breakdown on a state by state basis, but the net view is that there is economic mismanagement at the state and I dare say the local government level. What does this tell us? Votes matter. What people who are trying to enter your state as governors promise and do matters very much. This
Right.
amount, if it were spent by chance on your state's healthcare. Remember, this is on. I don't want us to forget. This is on refreshments, sitting allowances, travel, and utilities. They did not mention one educational project. They did not mention one healthcare project. They did not mention the things that broadly affect the ordinary citizen in the states. This is about the cost of governance, the people in and around the corridors of power. Listen, we cannot go on like this. This is in a situation, and there's another story related to this, which we'll talk about, but in a situation where we are supposedly getting more revenue at the state level, our governors, to paraphrase a quote by a play by Olarotimi, have quote unquote run mad again. You would have thought that when you have more money, one of your priorities would be to direct that money at the people. Because if you just maintained your former levels of spending with 40% extra money, you could have done remarkable good in the various states. But no, they're drinking tea in committees. They're flying around in junkets, in my view, wasting the people's money. And the question now we have this information, what can we do as citizens? It is not enough to be, to remark about this on newspapers and in radio shows. How can we hold our governments to account? This has to be central to our engagement with government. How to hold our governments to account.
Most definitely. Joseph, I just really quickly, I want to get your thoughts on this one. Now, there's a message here from JP on WhatsApp, and it says, "Is this a case of the states copying the center? No one is accountable to anyone. Sad." Now, is this a classic case of monkey see, monkey do? I mean, this is something that we talk about regularly when it comes to the center, the federal government. Ooh, it looks like Joseph has some technical difficulties. We'll get back to that when he comes back in. But AB, let's get on the conversation this morning, and of course we'll head into the Guardian and talk about some educational matters here. Now, the Minister of Education, Dr. Morofu Alausa, has assured academic unions that the President Bola Tinubu-led administration will honor agreements reached with them while assuring that the remaining 50% of withheld salaries will be paid. Now, he, however, urged labor unions, particularly those in the educational sector, to prioritize the welfare and education of Nigerian students by choosing dialogue over strike actions. Now, this Minister of Education, Dr. Olausa, he's one of the new ministers who just assumed that position a couple of weeks ago or thereabouts. So let's say he's still new in that particular ministry, so we can still cut him a bit of slack here. But my main issue right now is what he has said. Yes, it will be a good thing, or it's a good thing that the government would want to prioritize education and, of course, honor agreements with them. Now, we've heard all these sound bites before, this and that. Now, isn't this an opportunity for this particular government to actually walk the walk and not talk the talk? Because these agreements have been made as far back as 2009 in certain cases, and different administrations have come and have gone, strikes here, strikes there. Just recently, there was a strike by SANU and NAHC. I think ASU threatened a strike as well, or a warning strike or something. So these are recurrent themes. Now, this is a good opportunity to actually walk the walk, not just talk the talk here.
You know, part of this story that grabbed my attention was where he tried to make this promise, we will, we will. I told you I'm not impressed by we wills. But part of this story reveals, according to him, part of the reason why in the past governments had not performed, had not honored these agreements. He said subsidies before were costing Nigeria nearly $1 billion daily, while artificially maintaining the exchange rate added another $500 million monthly. Just, a back of the envelope scribble revealed to me that since the day President Bola Tinubu said subsidies have been removed, that would mean we have, quote unquote, saved about $560 billion, quote unquote, from these two policies. Does this country or this economy look like one where that amount of money can be considered to have been found money? And I really want to benchmark what ASU has been asking for against the potential of $1 billion daily. We've spent about $557 days since that fateful day that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu took office. Thank God. Are you saying we could not have been dedicating 1 day's savings a month for the past 18 months, would have gotten $18 billion? Are you saying $18 billion would not have done a lot of good in the direction of these agreements? So if you're telling me that we have stopped costing the nation this amount, what are we doing with the money? Does it mean, like we read in the earlier story, that we are variously spending it on travel, notably the president traveling all over the world, and assorted sitting allowances and refreshments therein? Is that how we are mismanaging our money? We heard a story the other day. I heard a story that the government's about to announce subsidized rail travel for Christmas. A nice initiative. It happened last year. I think they want to repeat it this year, hopefully with improvements. Not a bad idea. When we complete or extend our train routes from Itakpe to Abuja, for instance, or from Warri to Port Harcourt, for instance, or the one from the Eastern Corridor, from Port Harcourt up to Maiduguri, though I abhor the idea of a narrow rail track because there's no reason to make one part of the country permanently, in my view, different from the rest. But setting that aside, what are we doing with the money? The next thing we hear, somebody wants a new jet. The next thing we knew, we heard about a yacht. If this statement is to be believed, you see, the government has not yet demonstrated that it can walk the talk. It is supposedly saving all this money, but still promising to, shall, will, intends to. Not good enough. And so this new minister, God bless him, I think he has to understand the context in which he's working. When he makes statements like that, he puts a mirror in front of government and tells me personally that they are unable to properly manage the nation's resources, or they are profligates, i.e. wasteful with it.
All right. Thank you for sharing this thoughts, AB. Let's take a quick break. When we come back in, we'll take more stories. We're talking about amnesty and, of course, the military. We want to find out about that. Keep it tuned to the Smooth Breakfast right here on Smooth 98.1. Seems Joseph has technical issues
over there. Yes.
Yeah, I think so because he came back in. I admitted, but he didn't.
He dropped off again.
Yeah, so I think network issues on his end,
On
unfortunately.
his end. Okay. Well, I'll try and read the stories. You can go down to my last one, then I'll try and be quickly preparing for any of the other ones that,
Okay.
yep.
Welcome back to the show. If you're just tuning in, this is Freshly Pressed on the Smooth Breakfast on Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. 47 minutes past 7 a.m. on a feel good Friday morning. Feel good Friday vibes all the way. My name is Ayokunmi. And of course, AB Bozimo is with me in this morning. Joseph Obari should be joining us pretty soon. Technology, when it decides to do things to you, it does that all the way. But, anyways, AB is in. And of course, we'll continue taking the stories as we get along. You can join us as well by sharing your messages with us on WhatsApp on 0809-444-0981. You can also join us on YouTube at Smooth 981 FM Lagos and drop your comments there. Love to hear from you. Before we jump back in, let me take a couple of messages here. This is from Veronica, and it says the wastages are just mind-boggling. Just last week, the Akwa Ibom State Governor had a service of songs for the death of his wife and broadcast on various TV stations, including logistics for the event, entertainment, and all, with no one questioning where the funds came from on a personal or a private matter. If he weren't a governor, would he have spent this much? Uh, well, that is something I really cannot speak to. I do not know the modalities where that actually was concerned, whether as the wife of a sitting governor, it would be treated as a state matter or a personal matter. I cannot speak to that right now. But good questions that you're asking still, Veronica. Let me see what's talking to us here. Michael says, no KPIs, no NPR, no auditing, no prosecution, no jail time. All we seem to have is a shaky EFCC. Please let them keep eating, keep eating the monies. And Joseph Menier says, the bitter truth is the bitter truth we have to tell ourselves whether we like it or not. Nigeria is in dire straits. Just imagine the humongous wastage the state governments on unproductive expenditure, entertainment, jamborees, pleasures, and so on. Just as the federal government, nobody is accountable. That's why citizens tend to reject most policies because it's for the benefit of the leaders, not for the citizens. May God bless Nigeria. All right. Thank you for your message. Adedeji Adekoya says 100%. I agree 100% with AB. We should start having conversations on how we can hold people in government accountable. They've been having a free ride for far too long. All right. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and keep them coming. All right, AB, let's jump into the punch. Let's talk about fuel matters. Now, despite the commencement of petrol production by two major refineries in Nigeria in the last 3 months, I think I can put an asterisk right there. Oil market,
One and a half refineries, please go on.
that's why, that's why I said asterisk. Oil marketers have continued to import and distribute the product nationwide. Now, the Punch gathered on Wednesday that marketers imported 2.3 billion liters of petrol between September 11 and December 5, 2024. Now, the continued importation of petrol, it is contrary to a public announcement by some group of marketers who earlier stated their intention to halt petrol imports and focus on domestic supply. Now, AB, as you said, one and a half refineries. Now, of course, the Dangote refinery has been on board, has been producing, and so on. There's been a back and forth over stole off takers, no stole off takers, and so on and so forth. But after the back and forth, oil marketers were now free to negotiate the purchase of petrol directly from the refinery without having to go through the NNPCL and all that. But now we're seeing that between September 11 and December 5, 2.3 billion liters of petrol have been imported. Now, what does this tell us? Is it that there's not enough supply here, or is this a pricing issue? Because if you have a refinery, if you have one and a half refineries working here, why is there a need to import this much petrol from the outside?
I would say, first of all, there could be the possibility that as the refineries were coming on stream, there were some um, loading that had already been paid for that might have already been on the way. And so it was definitely going to still reach here, having those transactions, were already in place or in play. That could account for some of it. But overall, there's been entirely too much opacity in this arena. Opacity on pricing, opacity on performance, opacity on quality. We just hear a lot of things. Many of them don't seem to add up, including this story. One thing is for sure, if I can get something cheaper right next to me, it is highly unlikely that I will bother to spend more money to get it from elsewhere. One of the miracles and mysteries of Nigeria is that it seems sometimes cheaper to import certain elements from as far away as 5,000 kilometers in China than it would be to produce them here. I'm not saying that is necessarily or that should necessarily be the case with petroleum, but that has been one of the things about our economy. There seem to be assorted costs that add up domestically to many products, and I don't know to what extent fuel is one of those products. I think given the long lead time of imports, maybe 60, 90 days, we could September 11th, October 11th, December, November, maybe right about now, if we now start taking the statistics, we might find that we have run out of those places where importation was paid for before. Maybe from December, we should start being able to account for domestic produced petroleum. Otherwise, I can't see. The only other reason would be that what's being produced in Nigeria is economically less attractive than what is being imported. Because look, these are business people. And with the margins on these things, they would have done their calculations and figured out that they can make more profit from one than the other. That can be the only overt thing. And then that would be very strange. How come petroleum produced locally is more expensive than that imported? That would be a question. We can only know that when this veil of opacity is removed. Right now, I mean, if you take the cost of a barrel of fuel, there should be experts who can tell us, based on the cost of a barrel of fuel today, this is a template. This should be what you should be able to sell petroleum for. But somehow that is not information that if you want to talk to me about design, I can give you a template for what your project should cost. Those in the petroleum or petroleum aligned industry should give us a sense of what it should cost for a barrel of fuel based on contemporary petroleum oil pricing. But so far, I haven't been able to lay my hands on such a template.
All right. Let me stick a couple of messages in. JP says imports will happen alongside local refining. True. I mean, even other countries, US and Co, they still import, fuel and all that. Now, he further says commercial consideration and TAT are considerations as well. Also, stock versus imports is a balance. The more we refine, the balance shifts. Import time is 14 days thereabouts. Okay, thank you for
wow.
Thank you for that message, JP. Who was talking to us here? Dio says, there's a saying, when the purpose of a thing is not known, abuse or misuse is inevitable. The Nigerian situation is similar to putting a thug in a vault of a central bank or to run a multinational corporation. It will run it aground. I want to ask, are we in a democracy or autocracy or feudalism? And let me see.
Autocracy.
Okay, Dio, the next part of your message, I'm not fully in agreement with it. So, it concerns Dele Farotimi. It's not a government thing. I will leave it at that. But I get what you're trying to say. It's not about the government. It's an individual here. So, thank you for your thoughts there. Ajayi Olunuwa says, imagine petrol still being imported despite Dangote and section of Port Harcourt refineries producing fuel. We'll still import fuel alongside that. It is common practice all over. It's just that the quantity that you would import then wouldn't be as much as if you were not actually refining. He further asks, where is the forex for these imports coming from when the country is still struggling with our foreign reserves? God help us. God help Nigeria. Anyways, AB, let's jump into another story. Still sticking with the punch here. It's concerning education in a way, and it's the last story down there. Now, the federal government has fired some civil servants with degrees from private tertiary institutions in Benin Republic and Togo. Now, the directive affected federal workers who graduated from the institutions from 2017 to date. Now, the director of Information and Public Relations in the Office of the Secretary of the Government of the Federation, Shegun Imohilsen, confirmed the development to one of the Punch correspondents on Wednesday. Now, if you remember, in August, the federal government announced that only 8 universities had been accredited to award degrees to Nigerians in Togo and in Benin Republic as well. This came off the back of an investigation that was done by a journalist here in Nigeria, where he acquired a degree from a university in Benin Republic in just 2 months. 2 months. And he used it to participate in the National Youth Service course. That's the NYSC.
I remember.
Now, this is kind of like a follow-up to that. Very interesting. But what I'm wondering is, of course, we know that fraud and forgery is something that unfortunately we as Nigerians, or some Nigerians, tend to perpetrate. Now, my question is, for these people to use these documents to get into such sensitive positions in government and all that, what does it say about the screening process, the separating the weeds from the chaff in terms of, okay, those who should be here and not be here? This is definitely not a good look for any organization, and definitely not for government.
It says a lot is part of the rot, because ordinarily there should have been a vetting procedure where you assess a person's credentials against where they say they came from. It amazes me that, first of all, as you said, this is a follow-up. At the time they said they would investigate, presumably those that are being asked to leave have been found to be wanting. So it goes further back along the chain. How come they were able to be accepted in the first place? Now that they were accepted, they were earning monies. Are they going to be asked to refund it? Are they going to be prosecuted for either simple fraud? A lawyer, if Joseph will join us, he will tell us whether it's simple fraud or whether there's something deeper about it. And then who were those in charge of the vetting process from within government? They too must bear some liability. It's one thing to sack the person who came with the false certificate. Who was supposed to do the job of determining whether that certificate is real or not? That person too should get some serious consequence. If those people just skate past this without any consequence, then this is just papering over the crack. Because if somebody with another sophisticated source comes, they can perpetrate this again. So I just think it's interesting, because people who have gone through the process at least should not feel cheated, and people who have gone through the process of actually earning their degrees, whether domestically or in other countries, legitimately were being defrauded or being cheated because people were doing this kind of thing. So yes, you sack them, you should give consequence to them, and also give consequence to those whose job it was to screen them in the first place. But to that extent, kudos to the government. It's just, interesting that we have this scenario where people are highlighting people with fake credentials, and the country can only be improved when all people who have fake credentials are called out.
All right, Ivy, let me take one final message, as we call it, in the morning. The final freshly pressed of this week. Idima Puza says it's only Nigeria that imported fuel will be cheaper than fuel produced in the country. Without importation expenditure, corruption will not kill us in Niger. Amen to that prayer. Anyways, thank you all for sharing your thoughts and your messages, and keeping tuned throughout the entire week to Freshly Pressed on the Smooth Breakfast. Always a pleasure getting your thoughts, and always a pleasure having you on the show, AB. Thank you for coming through.
Thank you. The pleasure and privilege are all mine. Happy Friday. You go get some rest, Ayo. You've been doing a yeoman's job all week. I've been in touch.
Thank you so much. All right, AB, have a great one and a great weekend as well. All right, keep it tuned to the Smooth Breakfast this beautiful Friday morning on Smooth 98.1. We'll get into the locker room at 8:15. Of course, banter is sure to flow all around. Tega will be in for that one. Looking forward to great conversation.
Sir Ayo.
Yes,